chapter 9, verses 20 and chapter 10. We're going to share the screen now. Okay. And there we go. When we read chapter 9, verses 1 to 19, we talked about the Gibeonites and how they fooled Joshua, okay, if we remember, by saying we came from far away, and they created a covenant with Joshua and the people of Israel. And when the people of Israel heard that, they were very upset. They wanted to go and kill them. But Joshua and the elders stopped them. They said, no, we made a pact with them. We made a covenant. We swore in the name of God. And therefore, we are obligated to them. And we are obligated to save them. Okay? So this is what we will do to them. Instead of killing them, we will spare their lives so that there may be no wrath against us because of the oath that we swore to them, and the chieftains declared concerning them, they shall live. And they became hewers of wood and drawers of water for the whole community, as the chieftains had decreed concerning them. Joshua summoned them and spoke to them. Why did you deceive us and tell us you live far, very far from us, when in fact you live among us? Therefore be accursed. Never shall your descendants cease to be slaves, hewers of wood and drawers of water for the house of my God. But they replied to Joshua, you see, your servants had heard that the eternal your God had promised Moses' servant to give you the whole land and to wipe out all the inhabitants of the country on your account. So we were in great fear for our lives on your account. That is why we did this thing. And now we are at your mercy. Do with us what you consider right and prosper. And he did so. He saved them from being killed by the Israelites. That day Joshua made them hewers of wood and drawers of water, and they still are for the community and for God's altar in the place that God will choose. So interesting. So they are slaves, but they're like on a higher level because they serve at the temple. Okay, so they're near agriculture and food and meat and things like that, which I could only assume they got some. And they had like a permanent job also, which was also good. But they were not able to marry with the Israelites. They were like still separate. And then the interesting thing happened when in Joshua chapter 10, when King Adoni-Tzedek of Jerusalem learned that Joshua had captured Ai and proscribed it, treating Ai and its king as he had treated Jericho and its king, and that moreover the inhabitants of Gibeon had come to terms with Israel and remained among them, he was very frightened. For Gibeon was a large city, like one of the royal cities, in fact larger than Ai, and all its men were warriors. Okay, so what's going on with the king Adoni-Tzedek of Jerusalem? This is before there are Israelites in Jerusalem. He's a king of the Jebusites. He's like, this rising power in the area, these Israelites led by Joshua are very dangerous. Anyone they fight against, they win the war and they get their city and all their spoils, okay? And the ones who don't fight, like the Gibeonites, they give up and they have like big cities. We don't want to give up. We don't want to create any pact or peace or covenant with the Israelites. Okay, which shows us that the Israelites were willing to maybe make a pact with them, possibly. So I'm going to get all my colleagues to go to war against the Israelites. And this way we'll draw them out of the country. So King Adoni-Tzedek of Jerusalem sent this message to King Oham of Hebron, King Piram of Yarmut, King Yafia of Lachish, and King Tzvi of Eglon. Come up and help me defeat Gibeon, for it has come to terms with Joshua and the Israelites. So he's not going to go against the Israelites, he's going to go against Gibeon to punish them for making a pact with the Israelites, and that will force any other city that wants to make peace with the Israelites to be afraid of that, because they'll know not to mess around with the pact of these 5 kings. The 5 Amorite kings, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Yarmut, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon, with all their armies, joined forces and marched on Gibeon and encamped against it and attacked it. So they started war against the Gibeonites. The people of Gibeon thereupon sent this message to Joshua in the camp at Gilgal. Do not fail your servants. Come up quickly and aid us and deliver us, for all the Amorite kings of the hill country have gathered against us. So this is pretty unbelievable. They deceived Joshua by telling them they came from afar. Joshua made a pact with them. Now, instead of killing them, once he found it out, they lied. Instead of killing them, he makes he lets them live as long as they are willing to, to serve in the temple as kind of like cheap labor. Okay, but now what they cared more was to have a pact against the other kings that would come to fight against them. So the other kings come and fight against them. So they called Joshua, okay, now's the time to cash our chips. You signed the pact. That means you're responsible for us. You need to come and save us and deliver us. What would Joshua could say? He's like, listen, that's really your problem. Okay, you lied to me. Your local nation, which I need to annihilate anyhow, according to the Torah. So, forget it. Nice try. You're on your own. That's not what Joshua does. Joshua takes the pact that he created with them very, very seriously, and he goes to war. He risks his own people, his own men against that. So Joshua marched up from Gilgal with all his combat troops, all the trained warriors. God said to Joshua, do not be afraid of them, for I will deliver them into your hands. Not one of them shall withstand you. So even God is behind Joshua. God could have told Joshua, what are you doing? I never told you you could go. You should have asked me, and I would have told you not to go. So God tells Joshua, no, yes, you have a responsibility in this pact to the Gibeonites, and you need to go and save them, because you swore in the name of God that you will be there one for another. Yes?
Militarily, that's the right thing to do anyway. Because number one, they're engaged with Gibeon, and Joshua could take them in the flanks and annihilate the armies, which means they've annihilated basically all of those cities.
Right, exactly. It's a very smart strategic move on behalf of Joshua. And then so on verse 9, it really says, Joshua took them by surprise. Marching all night from Gilgal, God threw them into a panic before Israel. Joshua inflicted a crushing defeat on them at Gibeon, pursued them in the direction of Bet Horon ascent, and harried them all the way to Azekah and Makedah. Okay, so the war on Gibeon starts here, Gibeon. Okay, here's Jerusalem, Dead Sea, Jerusalem. Gilgal is where the Israelites are. So the Israelites march all night and get to Gibeon. Then they push them to Bet Horon. You can see this is all brown and now gets green. Why does it get green? Because this is lower parts. This is going down to the ocean. So they're pushing them to all these area here. Okay, Shalabim. And while they were fleeing before Israel down the descent from Bet Horon, God hurled huge stones on them from the sky, all the way to Azekah, and they perished. More parents perished from the hailstones than were killed by the Israelite weapons. So a miracle happens to them. On that occasion, when God routed the Amorites before the Israelites, Joshua addressed God. He said in the presence of the Israelites, stand still, O sun at Gibeon, O moon in the valley of Ayalon. Did I do that right? And the sun stood still and the moon halted, okay? While the nation wreaked judgment on its foes. as it was written in the book of Yashar. Thus the sun halted in the mid-heaven and did not press on to set for a whole day. For God fought for Israel. Neither before nor since has there ever been such a day when God acted on words spoken by someone else. Can you believe that? It's like the entire Bible, the entire humanity, someone tells God what to do, and God does it. Okay? It's like I would tell God, may a Ferrari land in the parking lot right now as I exit my class on Joshua and I drive off from here into the sunset. Okay. I mean, someone call me, I'll be in my office, someone call me if that happens. Okay. I need to know. But the only time that it ever happened in history is here. Not even Moses said something like that to God and God halted. So this is how great the miracle is, because nature has stopped. Nature has stopped its usual functionality, right? So then Joshua, together with all Israel, returned to the camp at Gilgal. Meanwhile, those 5 kings fled and hid in a cave at Makkedah. When it was reported to Joshua that the 5 kings had been found hiding in a cave at Makkedah, Joshua ordered, roll large stones up against the mouth of the cave and post some men over it to keep guard over them. But as for the rest of you, don't stop, but press on the heels of your enemies and harass them from the rear. Don't let them reach their towns, for the eternal your God has delivered them into your hands. When Joshua and the Israelites had finished dealing them a deadly blow, they were wiped out, except for some fugitives who escaped into the fortified towns. The whole army returned in safety to Joshua in the camp of Makkedah. No one so much as snarled at the Israelites. And now Joshua ordered, open the mouth of the cave and bring those 5 kings out of the cave to me. This was done. Those 5 kings, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Yarmut, the king of Lachish, and the king of Babylon, were brought out to him from the cave. And when the kings were brought out to Joshua, Joshua summoned everyone on Israel's side and ordered the army officers who had accompanied him, come forward and place your feet on the necks of these kings. They came forward and placed their feet on their necks. Joshua said to them, do not be frightened or dismayed. Be firm and resolute, for this is what God is going to do to all enemies with whom you are at war. After that, Joshua has put them to death and impaled on 5 stakes, and they remained impaled on the stakes until evening. At sunset, Joshua ordered them, take down from the poles and thrown into the cave in which they had hidden. Large stones were placed over the mouth of the cave, and there they are to this very day. At that time, Joshua captured Makkedah and put it and its king to the sword, prescribing it and every person in it, and leaving none that escaped. And he treated the king of Makkedah as he had treated the king of Jericho. From Makkedah, Joshua proceeded with all Israel to Libnah, and he attacked it. God delivered it and its king into the hands of Israel. They put it and all the people in it to the sword, letting none escape. And he treated its king as he had treated the king of Jericho. From Libnah, Joshua proceeded with all Israel to Lachish. He encamped against it and attacked it. God delivered Lachish into the hands of Israel. They captured it on the 2nd day and put it and all the people in it to the sword, just as they had done to Libnah. And at that time, King Horam of Gezer marched to the help of Lachish, but Joshua defeated him and his army, letting none of them escape. From Lachish, Joshua proceeded with all Israel to Eglon. They encamped against it and attacked it. They captured it on the same day and put it to the sword, prescribing all the people that were in it, as they had done to Lachish. From Eglon, Joshua marched with all Israel to Hebron and attacked it. They captured it and put its king and all its towns and all the people of Israel that were in it to the sword, and let none escape, prescribing it and all the people in it, just as he has done in the case of Eglon. Joshua and all of Israel with him then turned back to the Vir and attacked it. He captured it and its king and all its towns. They put them to the sword and prescribed all the people in it. They let none escape, just as they had done to Hebron and as they had done to Libnah and its king, so they did to Dvir and its king. Thus Joshua conquered the whole country, the hill country, the Negev, the Shephelah, and the slopes, with all their kings, and let none escape, but prescribed everything that breathed, as the Eternal, the God of Israel, had commanded. Joshua conquered from there Kadesh Barnea to Gaza, all the land of Goshen, and up to Gibeon. All those kings and their lands were conquered by Joshua at a single stroke, for the Eternal, the God of Israel, fought for Israel. Then Joshua with all Israel returned to the camp at Gilgal. So this is, if you remember, the conquering the first part of Israel, the southern part, and the middle part, where the tribe of Judah then settled. So, yes, yeah.
According to this, is Gaza part of Israel now?
Of course, it always was. Gaza is always part of the land of Israel.
It was taken by the Philistines.
Yeah, right. So, but then Israel had conquered it again after the Philistines, yeah. At the end of Joshua 9, we left the clan of the Gibeonites in a state of servitude to the people of Israel. Rather than face near certain extinction, Cherem, the Gibeonites pretended to wander from far away and place themselves under the sworn protection of the Israelites. Apparently, having sworn by God's name, the Israelites felt bound by the oath, even though they derived on their false pretense, as you remember that we talked about. And Dr. Bradley Shavit Rabbi Artson says, Joshua's Israel isn't meant to be just another mendacious country. Its justification and ours is to live up to a higher standard. We are called to be the nation that is true to its word, however inconvenient. By demonstrating the strongest possible integrity, we hold out the promise that humanity can surpass its own limits, that we can show humanity how to fashion a world of honor, truth, and commitment by going and saving the ones who are in distress, like Joshua helped save the Gibeonites. Okay, here's a short film.
Hi, I'm Sean Zelig-Aster. Welcome to...
Whoops, sorry.
Hi, I'm Sean Zelig-Aster. Welcome to Joshua chapter 10. In this chapter, we have the most famous verse in all of Joshua. Sun, stand still at Giv'on, and moon at the valley of Ayalon. Here in front of you, you see Giv'on, the ancient city at its tail. How does this connect to the valley of Ayalon? It doesn't connect directly, it connects indirectly. Joshua fights with the kings here at Giv'on. They escape through the ascent and then descent of Beit Horon. They move westward up into the mountains and then down towards Beit Horon, and from there proceed into the valley of Ayalon. Now, let's go and see what the descent of Beit Horon looks like. And here you see the hills over which is the descent of Beit Horon. Moving around, we go over these hills, we see the modern city of Modi'in in the distance, and we hit the valley of Ayalon. This is the route that the kings took in Joshua chapter 10, and through which Joshua chased them, reaching the valley of Ayalon.
I think we should also go there, right? Like to the Judea and Samaria, and see all the ancient land as well. Okay, So here we have a nice painting of Joshua ordering the sun to stand still, okay, from the 18th century. Look at this beautiful battle, right? And the Gustav Dorf from the 19th century, an author of the Bible. Look at the hailstones falling from the sky. And here's Joshua killing the king of Makeda and all the other kings. And here's another one of Joshua stopping the sun from the 17th century. Using records from Egyptian records and astronomical data, in addition to biblical sources, it seems that there was an annular eclipse in the Near East on October 30th, 1207 BCE. Okay, as Colin Humphreys, one of the authors of the paper outlining this finding, notes that modern English translation, which followed the King James translation of 1611, usually interpret this text to mean that the sun and moon stopped moving. But going back to the original Hebrew text, we determined that an alternative meaning could be that the sun and moon just stopped doing what they normally do. They stopped shining. Okay, so this is one explanation, a more like astronomical explanation of why. What does it mean that Joshua stopped the sun? A second explanation is Malbim, which is a commentator from the 14th century, explains what is meant when the Tanakh presents Joshua's instruction to God as unique in the annals of prophecy. Neither before nor since has there ever been such a day when the Lord acted on words spoken by man. Malbim points out that unlike other prophets, Joshua did not pray, but rather spoke, and that this occasion was truly groundbreaking because God intended neither to aggrandize his reputation nor to save the Israelites from their enemies, simply to demonstrate that he was fighting on the Israelites' behalf. So that's another explanation of why Joshua was able to stop the sun. Another explanation is, while the precise circumstances of our chapter are relatively unknown, some of its lines are quite famous, particularly sun stands still in Gibeon and moon in the valley of Ayalon. Although popular lore tends to take this literally and even searches ancient records for evidence of related astronomical phenomena, like we saw in the first explanation, some Jewish authorities found that interpretation untenable. Here, for instance, is the commentary of Rabbi from the 13th century from Provence. On the many worthy questions raised by this episode is that if the sun stood still and its visible movement was nullified, then this wonder would be greater by far than all the wonders performed by Moses. All of those concern natural phenomena of a lower order, while this is of a significantly higher order. If this were so, it would contradict the Torah stipulation that no prophet comparable to Moses has arisen for Israel, in respect of all the wonders and signs that he performed in sight of all of Israel. How then does Gersonides interpret the verse? How could it be that Joshua is greater than Moses? He considers it a figure of speech comparable to time stood still, meaning just as we might use that expression to describe an activity that took less time than anticipated, so this is the book of Joshua, saying that the sun stood still signifies that the pursuit and subduing of the combined enemy forces gathered at Gibeon that ordinarily would have taken more time than was available at that hour of the day, since the battles were not fought at night, was miraculously accomplished in a limited amount of daylight time. So it's not like the sun really stopped, it felt like it. They did such a great job, they fought against the enemies that were so efficient. So that's a very interesting comment by Rabbi here, trying to really kind of like minimize Joshua's miracle, so not to make him look greater than Moses. Then there was the mentioning of Wait. Yeah, okay, so we'll conclude with that. And really, this was just important to finish this part. We've never had it in our recordings.